The Bills got beat up in Houston. My reaction to the disappointment is coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, welcome in. The Buffalo Bills lost to the Houston Texans 23-19 and fall to 7-4 on the season. Very frustrating loss. The Bills made tons of mistakes. It felt like they were overmatched at times, yet they still had a good chance to win this football game and couldn't get it done. There's a lot of questions, a lot of worthy questions about this football team and their consistency and their capacity. And ultimately, there are very real limitations with the Buffalo Bills that make it tough for them to perform consistently well. It's very disappointing to be at this point, and it absolutely feels like the Bills are falling behind in the AFC. And so we will talk about this game. We'll talk some big picture stuff as well. But we got to get into the offense. It was an awful, awful day for the Buffalo Bills offense. Some really, really frustrating sequences. And I absolutely recognize how great Houston's defense is. They are a phenomenal, phenomenal group. Give them credit. They played great. They're a great defense. The Bills' offense struggled big time. And I want to kind of just go through the drives and highlight just some really bad sequences that are prohibitive to winning football games. Now, obviously, you loved how it started. 10 plays, 81 yards. You get a touchdown, the 45-yard James Cook touchdown. We love that. Well, you respond to your touchdown with a 3-and-out, and you get 6 yards on first down, and then it's -2 to Shakir on the bubble screen that everyone's ready for now, which gets you to a 3rd and 6, and then Josh Allen scrambles for 2 yards, and the Bills punt. Then you get a field goal. And this is a very frustrating field goal because the Bills were 1st and 10 from the Houston 14. 1st and 10 from the 14. Your first down play is a -2 yard run to Ty Johnson. Then Josh Allen takes a 10-yard loss on 2nd down to make it 3rd and 22. You ultimately throw an incomplete pass and you kick a field goal. So you go from 1st and 10 at the 14 to 4th and 22. It's bad. Then you throw an interception on the very first play of the next drive. And what's frustrating about that is it's right after Houston has their best offensive drive. They go 12 plays, 77 yards. They take almost 6 minutes off the clock. And on the first possession, or the first play of the following possession, you give the ball right back to Houston. Now, credit to the defense, they held them to 3 points, but that's a very frustrating sequence to have your worst defensive series of the game and then put the defense right back out there. And I'll be honest with you, I really didn't take much exception with the interception. That's a heck of a play by the linebacker, Azeez Al-Shaair. I saw what Josh saw. He was leaning towards driving on a outbreaker, and he's able to very quickly not clothes and puts his hands up and tips the ball in the air and makes a play. Like, whatever. That happens. But the timing was horrible. You put your defense right back out there. Now you hold them to 3, which is great. And then you get the Ray Davis kick return for a touchdown. Love that, right? Love that. And then the end of half for the Bills offense. You come out of the third quarter and the opening drive, the Bills go 5 plays and punt. Josh Allen is sacked for an 18-yard loss on 3rd and 16. The next drive, you wind up punting. You go with a punt here on a 3rd and 1 play. Josh Allen is sacked for a 5-yard loss. Then you go 3 plays and fumble. Josh Allen hits a throw on 3rd and 3 for 13 yards, but Khalil Shakir fumbles the ball. Then you get to the fourth quarter, and this was one of my most frustrating moments. You go turnover on downs on that opening drive of the fourth quarter, where you have a 20-yard run from James Cook, and then you proceed to run it 4 more times with James Cook. And you get to a 4th and 1, where James Cook is trying to get out of the game. He's obviously tired. He had the 20-yard run and then ran it 3 more times. So 4 runs in a row. He's trying to get out of the game. And then you lose 2 yards on 4th and 1. And I think it was more about Osiris Torrance on that play than it was James Cook, but just a terrible sequence. Points are at a premium. You can't leave them on the board. You were 1st and 10 from the 32. You came away with no points. Then you get a field goal on the next drive where you're 1st and 10 at the 20. You're sacked on 1st down. You can't overcome it. Then you have the game-winning drive opportunity, and you overcome a 4th and 27 with a really fun play, the lateral that you get 44 yards on. And then it comes down to, Gabe Davis can't get the second foot down. You're 4th and 1. Deion Dawkins, false start. You're 4th and 6. The play call comes in late on a 4th and 6. You're out of sorts in a high-leverage moment. Josh Allen throws a pick. And Josh Allen's, on the sideline talking to Mitch Trubisky saying, what are we doing? And in the postgame, he's talking about how it was rushed. The play call came in and he probably needed to call a timeout. Like, when you're in the most critical moment of the game, your operation is completely unsettled. Your franchise left tackle goes false start on 4th and 1. You're not getting the play call in a timely manner on 4th and 6, like with the game on the line. There's no other play. You don't get it. It's over. The Bills, once again, in a end of game moment where you got to have it, they're out of sorts. Their operation lets them down. Just a bad day for this offense. You can't finish drives. You can't pass protect. You can't stay on schedule in the run game. Houston's playing their top-down defense. They're fast. They're physical. They overmatched the Bills. You scored 19 points, but thank God you got a kick return for a touchdown and a 45-yard touchdown run. The Bills might have just had a couple of field goals to show for this game. Offensive line's getting beat up. Josh Allen is sacked 8 times. He's hit 12 more. The offense was completely out of sorts. You just didn't have the right stuff. And again, I get it. Houston's defense is really good. I didn't expect the Bills to go out there and play clean offense and have 400 yards and 30 points. That was never my expectation. But when you did have opportunities to finish drives, you failed every single time. 0 for 2 in the red zone. And these are just moments against this type of team and that type of game where you're not winning the field position battle. When you have opportunities to make plays, you got to make them. You can't, Khalil Shakir, you can't fumble. You cannot fumble there, dude. You got to have your operation correct on a 4th and game. And it wasn't. It's a bad day. It's a bad loss. And whatever. Like I said, I expected Houston's defense to look really good. But when you have opportunities, you got to get it done. And you couldn't get it done. All right, let's continue this conversation here on the other side of it by focusing more on the defense and talk about how the defense actually did keep them in the game for as frustrating as it was to start. They gave them a chance there in the second half. We'll talk about that here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It just keeps every game exciting, and I love the injury reboot feature. If one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot feature will save your lineup from a loss. So check it out. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Welcome back, folks. The Bills fall to the Texans 23-19. They sit at 7-4 on the season, the roller coaster of the season, right? You look bad against the Bucks. You beat you look bad against the Texans. You beat the Bucks by 2 scores. You get smoked by the Dolphins. You beat the Chiefs. You smoke the Panthers. You get beat by the Falcons. I mean, it's just not a consistent football team. That's what it is. It's not a consistent football team. You just don't know what you're going to get. One thing I'll say about this game is, for as frustrating as this defense looked early in the game, they absolutely kept them in it. Now, obviously, I don't love giving up 20 points in the first half. And, you gave up a good amount of rushing production in the first half. You gave up some explosive passing plays. But let's be honest, the defense is the only reason the Bills had a chance to win this game. In the second half, they held Houston to 35 yards and 3 points. Houston had 5 drives in the second half. They punted 4 times, and they got a field goal. And why did they get a field goal? Because Khalil Shakir fumbled and gave the ball to Houston at the Bills' 22. I mean, they might not have scored in the second half. And on 3 of those 4 punts, they went 3 and out. The Bills' defense was lights out in the second half. Lights out. They gave them a chance. I kept on just waiting for Houston to open up a 2-possession lead, in which case I knew there was no chance the Bills could win the game because I knew they weren't going to score twice. But they never did. They never did. The defense gave them a chance. The defense is certainly overmatched in some ways. They gave them a chance in this game. The offense could not get it done. And when you look at the 4 losses that the Bills have taken this year, the offense has been horrible. The Bills scored 20 against New England and turned it over 3 times. They scored 14 against Atlanta and turned it over twice. They scored 13 against Miami and no points until like the 4th quarter and turned it over 3 times. They scored 19 against Houston and turned it over 3 times. Like, the offense is the unit that's letting this football team down in a big way. The defense held Houston to 15 first downs. Houston went 2 of 12 on third downs. They only had 261 total yards on 12 drives. The defense gave them a chance. Absolutely gave them a chance. And the offense couldn't finish routinely. And when you look at the reality of this team, the 2025 Buffalo Bills, they're an inconsistent and sloppy offense. Now, they're very potent. They're very potent. If you ever told me that the Bills had 450 yards and scored 40 points, I would believe you. It doesn't matter who the opponent is, because I know how capable they are and I know how good their quarterback is. But in the course of 11 games this year, they have told us very firmly that they are an inconsistent and mostly sloppy offense. There's no consistency. That's the point. There's no consistency. Defensively, they're scrappy, but they're really undermanned. The pass rush is gone. They have 1 sack in the last 3 games, and it was that last play against Baker Mayfield where kind of a coverage sack, Daquan Jones strips the ball. That's it. They didn't sack Tua. They sacked Baker 1 time, and they didn't sniff Davis Mills. No sacks, 3 quarterback hurries. Now, to Davis Mills' credit, he got the ball out quick. I'm very interested to see where those numbers landed, but I was looking at some live data, and I think at one point, fairly late in the game, he was at like 2.15 seconds average time to throw. But, I mean, ultimately, just the eyeball test shows you that the pass rush isn't there. Joey Bosa, with one hand, not that effective. No Michael Hoyt, no Ed Oliver. You have a bunch of young players, and Greg Rousseau can't beat the rookie left tackle. And your run defense is obviously suspect. Just be honest about this team. Like, it's really limited. The one thing that they had to be was consistent on offense. And they're not. And I know they're not. They've had like some minor injuries, like Kincaid's banged up, and Palmer missed some time. But if we're being honest, that pales in comparison to what the defense has gone through. They can't rely on their offense. It's hard to be perfect all the time. I get it. But the offense in these 4 losses has gotten in its own way time and time again. This team would very much surprise me if this is the one. If this is the Bills team that gets over the hump, I'd be very, very surprised. That this is the one that's going to be probably, if they get in, it'll be a wild card team. You got to go win 3 road games. Let's be real. This team hasn't really shown you that that's who they are. Now, if it does come together, we can talk about that. And so on the other side of it, I want to focus in on, all right, where's your hope? What do you cling to? Like, what are you thinking about in terms of if the Bills are going to go on any type of meaningful run, what things are going to be true? So we'll explore that. We'll talk about injuries. We'll recap my predictions, and we'll talk about what's next here for the Bills and this podcast in the next segment. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it is frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, and it's easy, and it's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. The app makes it super simple. I can even see the exact view from my seat before purchasing. Honestly, Game Time is faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I've ever purchased tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, folks. Reacting to the Bills' 23-19 loss to the Houston Texans. So where's the hope? Where's the hope? What are you clinging to if you want to be optimistic about how this season can finish? And I don't know, like I've said before, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. It's 11 games. This team has told us that they're highly inconsistent on offense. They're mistake prone on offense. Defensively, they don't have much of a pass rush, and they really struggle to stop the run, and that they have to coach above their talent to win in some situations. So yeah, be real here. Recalibrate your expectations. Now you go out and battle and compete, and you take it one game at a time and keep doing it until it's over. I'm not saying you fold up. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just, as an analyst of this team, it's my belief that they have a lot of things that they would have to overcome to be a Super Bowl team this year. I think most people would agree with that. Even if you don't want to hear it, I think it's pretty true. But if you wanted to be hopeful and optimistic, where would that come from with 6 games left to play? Well, I think number one is that the offense figures it out, right? They do have Josh Allen. They were an offense last year that I said and believe was potentially the best offense the Bills have ever put on the field. It's all pretty much there in terms of the ingredients. So, yeah, I think you could point to that and say they could figure it out. It could all come together in an epic way, and that would be huge. Defensively, I think it comes down to believing in young players that they would take massive in-season steps. Guys like TJ Sanders, guys like Deion Walker, Javon Solomon, Max Hairston, Jordan Hancock. You think about players like Larry Ogunjobi, who I think is playing better. Greg Rousseau, that he can elevate his performance. That players who aren't playing to their normal standard, like a Taron Johnson, can elevate what they're offering. And boy, I'm concerned about Taron. A dreadful couple games for him. Run fits, coverage just doesn't look like himself at all. Which has been the case for a lot of players, right? Terrell Bernard doesn't look like himself. Taylor Rapp didn't look like himself. Taron Johnson. Christian Benford. It's concerning. It's very, very concerning. But I think it's very important here down the stretch. I mean, the Bills have 6 regular season games and whatever happens with the postseason. I think you want to take some opportunity here to get these young players some experience. Play them. See what you have. And make sure that when you do rally for 2026, that we're not wondering or we're not talking about, they're not really repped. Well, I with all due respect, like, let's go down seeing Hancock and not Poyer. Or more Hancock. Let's go down seeing more TJ Sanders and less Jordan Phillips. Let's see some Dorian Williams. I think that's important. As much of that as they can get. I am not packing it in. I am not conceding. I'm being real about what this team is and isn't. And you want to go battle and try to win these games. There's no question. Go win them all. I hope they do. But along the way, I think it's very meaningful to play these young guys and assess and afford them the opportunity to get some experience. Injuries were a mess in this game. I think 3 players that didn't finish. Terrell Bernard, who was seen in a sling. Looks like he has some type of elbow deal. Spencer Brown in a sling. Boy, I'm concerned there. Shoulder looks rough. They probably should have pulled him sooner than they did. And then Max Hairston with a concussion. But of course, I mean, who went to the tent? James Cook was in there. Connor McGovern had some type of leg thing. Deion Dawkins, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Christian Benford, Josh Allen, whatever. He had a couple of different things. He said his shoulder went numb at one point. It's a banged up team. Send Thursday games to the moon. Send them to the freaking moon. What are we doing to these players? This is crazy. I mean, listen, I don't think these are hard things to figure out if you're the league. Go ahead and have Thursday night football. But make it a requirement that you can only play on Thursday night if you're off of a bye or something. These guys played on Sunday. These guys are going to play a Sunday National Football League game. And then have to be in Houston on Thursday to go play another one. I know that this is like a routine thing in the NFL, but it's just crazy to me. And how many times do we watch these types of games? And guys are just getting banged up, right? Like when you're not refreshed, you're just not able to perform optimally. And I just think it's crazy that the NFL does this to these players. I'd say the same thing if the Bills won the game, by the way. It's just a big ask. So we'll see what the injury report yields whenever we get an update from Sean McDermott. Let's recap my predictions here. My first prediction was that the Bills would go over the Texans' season average for allowed points and yards. That happened. The Bills scored 19 points, which is more than the 16 that they average giving up. The Bills got 326 yards, which is obviously more than the 258 that they give up. I said that the Bills would hold the Texans under 100 rushing yards. I was very close. The Texans had 108. I think they only averaged like 4.5 yards per carry. The Bills run defense had some shaky moments early, but overall they settled in. But I didn't get it right. They got 108. I said Khalil Shakir would go over 43.5 receiving yards. This was one of the easiest props of my life. He had 110 receiving yards. Hope you got in on that. I had the Bills with over 100 rushing yards, something that has only happened twice against Houston this year and didn't happen in the last 2 games for Buffalo offensively. That did happen. They got 143 rushing yards. And I predicted the Bills to win. They did not. So I go 3 for 5, or excuse me. Yeah, I get 3 out of 5 correct on my predictions this week. I wish I got the last one right, but I didn't. Next up for this podcast is going to be the All 22 review. I'll have it to you either Friday afternoon or like Saturday mid-morning. Have some plans with my wife that I'm pretty excited about on Friday night. And so if I get done beforehand, I get done beforehand. If not, we'll finish that up on Saturday. But it won't go past Saturday to get you the All 22 review. And then, of course, we'll get back into the swing of things with Monday. We'll have an open topic. I got a little something cooked up for that. I know that the Bills or the Hallmark movie is coming out this weekend, so maybe we'll have some discussion on that and maybe reset the deck a little bit on the Bills. But then, before we know it, we'll be right back into our routine, getting ready for the Bills' next game, which is against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. And then it's the Bengals. So we're going to find out, right? Going to play them all and see what happens. So far, the Bills are 7-4 and super, super inconsistent. And certainly feels like it's a long shot for the Bills to win the AFC East for a 6th consecutive season. So this team's got some obvious flaws. They really do. And you certainly don't want to be having these types of conversations at this point, right? They just played their Week 12 game. You're 9 years into a build, right? And you just feel like there's some real shortcomings with the operation. And it's concerning. All right, folks, not the conversation I was hoping to have with you today, but it's the conversation we had to have because the Bills did what they did on the field. So there we go. All right, thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.